a very hearty congratulations and hello there. Congratulations, where did that come from? Hello there, everybody. It's me, your beloved Star Wars Dad Nooch Too Good. And Capital Games is finally telling us why Relic Delta, and I'm gonna take some credit here. Let's give yours truly a little bit of credit for this thumbnail a few days ago. Why Relic Delta? Excuse me. Why Relic Delta? Well, why Relic Delta? Indeed, it's a great question. We've all been asking. You know, when this thing is coming out. We think it looks like overpowered Marvel Strike Force. We talk about this Relic Delta and we say, what is the problem that's being solved? We don't understand the problem being solved. Where here's Capital Games with perhaps Moby Dick or War and Peace to explain what is going on with Relic Delta. Let's break this down and talk about it and read through and see what's going on. I have read this. It gets pretty deep into a lot of gamer talk, and I have to break it down. Anyway, why Relic Delta? Heads up, this is pretty long. There's a lot to unpack, both foundationally and topically. Foundationally, the entire overall arching view of the game. Topically, on Relic Delta. We've heard the concerns about splitting focus between increasing relic levels on older characters to account for Relic Delta while still wanting to pursue newer characters. Right, that's what we've been saying. Like, if you make everything at Relic 9 way better than everything else, and I gotta just stop farming everything and go to Relic 9 and spend 6 to 9 months just doing just Relic 9 on my roster. With our upcoming release, we'll be changing how players get and invest in new characters. Now that's interesting. With our upcoming release, we will be changing how players get and invest in new characters. More details come on this later, but the relevant... hold on, didn't we just change this a year ago? I think like we just changed this. We just... Like a year ago, we went to the episode and era, idea. We had the episode pass. We made unlocking characters of 7 stars cheaper. And instead of 300, now it's 100 by buying the right packs. I guess there's more to come. All right. You'll be progressing through gear tiers and lower relic levels without needing to use gear or relic materials, which frees up those resources to be spent on older characters. That is actually interesting and good news. So one of the things we've been talking about, I think it'll be addressed again here, is if we're going to do this, is relicking going to become more available to the player base? Can I relic more characters? Can I get, we're going to give us this access to relic relic materials more freely in Star Wars Galaxy Heroes? And this looks like yes. You'll be progressing through gear tiers and lower relic levels without needing to use gear or relic materials. I'm gonna go through gear tiers without needing gear? We'll see what that looks like. I don't even know what that means. Like, can I go through like a banana eating contest and not eat bananas? Why is my mouse doing this here? Additionally, both droid brains and higher level Signet data will be added as outputs from the scavenger, giving players an alternate means of acquiring those materials. Okay, that's good. That's good. Lastly, the playtest is still ongoing. It is, and we are continuing to gather feedback from the testers and the community. We simply want to provide the context that folks have been requesting. Let's get into it. Table of content. It's a table of contents, everybody. The basics, vertical progression, the problem, scalability, the options, possible solutions. That says the same thing, kind of. Anyway, the chosen solution, Relic Delta. I keep saying that. Relic Delta. The variations, alternative versions, the future. Where does this leave us? Where does this lead us? Where does this lead us? You should, Meathead, look me up, buddy. I mean, I know we talk on a consistent basis, but come on, man. Let me do some proofreading. Where does this lead us? The future. The basics, vertical progression. Games with progression fall into 2 main categories. Horizontal progression. As a primary vector, power does not increase. Rather, over time, you gain additional tools in your tool belt to solve the same sorts of problems at similar power levels. Got it. You get a character, League of Legends. You get Teemo. You get Yasuo. It's the same basic character, the same kits with adjustments made over time, for different stuff going on. And you get a new amulet, a new belt, a new whatever, and it makes them better at what they're doing. But the basics of the character stay the same. and you buy skins, right? You pay for those games progress or make money by selling skins. Vertical progression. As a primary vector, power increases with new releases. That rhymes. This doesn't have to be a rapid increase at 10 years, possibly 10 years. Well, 6 years because we have 4 years with Relic 9. And the team has done an excellent job of taking measured and calculated steps when it comes to power increases. I don't disagree with that. I don't disagree with that. This power increase can come. By the way, why is my mouse doing this? Yesterday, or a couple days ago, my battery like went dead on stream. Now, like it's flicking for no reason. Anyway, this power increase can come from new equipment, stats, new kits and abilities, new systems, etc. Both types of games need new content, right? At least in the context of a live service game. They have different constraints and objectives with this new content, but they both need it. That's true. If there's no new content, there's no game. That's it. You could sell it to Apple Play. I've had experience with this. Sell it to Apple Games or Apple Play or whatever it's called, and then people can pay $10 a month. Apple Arcade, and they can play it, and you don't develop it ever. Whatever. Vertical progression games generally need new content at a higher power level that players transition to and transition away from older content. You can see Marvel Strike Force for that. You know, they're just everything that comes out that's new is better than the old, and the old stuff fades away, right? We haven't had a lot of that here. We've had a lot of those old teams, like we talked about, assault battles and stuff, are still relevant in the game. And even as you progress through Grand Arena, a lot of those older teams are still relevant at lower levels of Grand Arena. We see this in Galaxy Heroes because it is, of course, a primary. I don't know what my mouse is doing, and I apologize. Hold on. I have to buy a new mouse. Of course, a primarily vertical progression game with some horizontal progression elements. We just talked about that. Your account gets stronger over time as a result of gaining stronger characters, increasing gear and relic levels, acquiring and refining better mods, etc. And you rightfully want to engage with new content, which most of the time needs to be at higher power levels to absorb, showcase, and reward the power increase of your account. Got it. Please note that this doesn't mean we're going to suddenly leap forward multiple relic levels. Sounds like we're going to leap forward one. We do want to introduce new relic levels over time, but we also want to bring players along at the same pace. So Relic 10 for 4 years, Relic 11 for 4 years, same pace as other players, I get it. And catch players up to make sure all players are able to engage with and enjoy new content. So 4 years ago, Relic 9 comes out. 2 years ago, Lightspeed bundles come out, and that's your catch-up. So they get the big Relic 9, and they're like, we can do Relic 10, but they're like, but we got all these players that aren't caught up yet. Let's put Lightspeed bundles out there, and now Lightspeed tokens where they can invest not a minimal amount of money, but they can invest less money than ever before to bring their account up to snuff. So then we can look at finally looking at progressing our vertical development in the game now that we got everybody caught up, right? Right. The problem, scalability, always a problem. In systems design, this is where we get into the gobbledygook of stuff that I'm gonna struggle with. We try to make systems as scalable as possible. I get that. If you can build your system in a way that adapts to or accounts for changes to the game that you don't yet know are coming, you built a robust and scalable system. Yes, if you build a bunch of features that aren't scalable, at some point you have to spend all your time updating older things rather than building cool new stuff for players to enjoy. That isn't to say we shouldn't or don't update older systems. Look at Grand Arena Championship out of Grand Arena. Downgrade. I'm sorry. Can we build out like Grand Arena Championships 2? Can we do that? Raids 2.0. Ships 2.0. Etc. That's when ships went from 5 ships in the starting lineup to 3 ships in the starting lineup. I believe that's what that is. Okay. I really like the old raids. I'm sorry, old man talking. I really like the old Grand Arena system. It could have been tweaked instead of completely modified, but whatever. But the more you can build your game to have scalable systems, the easier it is to maintain and make more fun stuff for people. Well, that is automatically true. That's automatically true. If they can scale the game easily, then they can work on more new stuff, and that is more, new stuff is more fun. New stuff, you know, you can't have new stuff is more fun. Just period. 6 years ago, we transitioned from gear to, and by the way, even if you are unlocking old stuff in the game, it's still new for you, and that's fun. 6 years ago, we transitioned from gear to relics as the primary progression system for characters. Relics were added because adding a new gear tier was a massive undertaking. So, at the time, we went from a gear 11 to gear 12, and gear 12 was gold to indicate it was a kind of a new gear level and like a new type of gear level. And what they're saying is they went to gear 13, and gear 13 was like, man, if we go to gear 14, it's just going to blow this thing up. So they did relics, which was like ramping up the gear 13 piece. So I kind of understand that. Or massive undertaking, meaning it was going to balance that would have been just crazy. So with relics, they could say, here's relics, it's scalable to relic to gear 13, then relic 1, 2, 3, then relic 4 and 5, then relic 6 and 7, then relic 8, then relic 9. They just been scaling the relic system along the way instead of designing new gear every time, you know, every year or whatever. New pieces with a variety of stats had to be designed that somehow benefited the entire roster roughly equally, using different combinations despite kits wanting to focus on varying stats. Okay. So that's saying that you have these different kits. The new relic levels basically level up characters at a static, not a static, but a, you know, the same idea for leveling for each character. One character might do, a tank does protection and accuracy, and I don't remember what it does. And then an attacker does offense and crit damage, and a support does some health and some potency, whatever, stuff like that. But they all kind of scale at the same level, basically. The balance work was even worse, needing to account for multiple possible combinations of these buckets of stats for each character, and the roster has only grown since then, which leads to these kits that are, you know, the kits are longer than this announcement. And the roster has only grown since then. The reason for Relic's entire existence is to solve the scalability problem of the gear system. Need a drink. Nooch merch. Go check it out. Link in description. All right. However, relics haven't seen a new level progression for 4 years. I've been saying this a lot lately, even before they announced the Relic Delta. This is due to two aspects. There was nothing to absorb, showcase, and reward that power increase. And there was minimal to no reason to push for higher progression. We've been saying this, right? You only go to Relic 9 when it's required for a character farm. Otherwise, you rarely go to Relic 9 except for maybe your Galactic Legends. That's how I've been doing it. New content usually isn't cheap, and it's never free, so we often have to make difficult choices around what gets built. It's bad to introduce a new level progression without the content to absorb it, since there's no reason to invest or use the new level progression. It's bad to introduce new levels of content without the increased progression to enter and take it on, because, well, you can't enter it and complete it. I get that. So if you're going to introduce Relic 10, you want to have Smuggler's Run 3 get you to a level of Relic 10, or maybe it doesn't even say Relic 10 on it, but if you don't get to Relic 10, you're not going to complete it in the way you need to, and then we all look for ways to, you know, skirt the system and come up with, you know, workarounds and etc. But I get that. You got to have a reason that Relic 10 is meaningful before you release it. That makes sense. The core problem is that relics don't have a scalable system component promoting and rewarding investment. I just said they were scalable. So I told you this gets a little beyond Nooch brain here. I get it though. We don't have we haven't added assault battle tiers for Relic 9 and 10. We did for the new assault battles, but they didn't for the old ones. All right. I mean, honestly, if you add in a Relic 9 tier for all the old assault battles, that seems like people would do that over time. No, slowly. Don't do it all at once, but, you know, Relic 9 Imperial Troopers needed for this last one. You know, Challenge Tier 4? I don't know. Anyway, what eventually happens to a live service What eventually happens to a live service vertical progression game that stops releasing vertical progression? What happens to any live service game when the core gameplay loop is removed? There are two operational reasons to invest: the stats given on each individual level and content entry requirements, but at some point the stats have diminishing returns. That's true, and I think that's where we are, right? That's where we sit right now. And requirements can't update as players' rosters evolve. Players invest in or on, like, meaning if I'm adding, you know, 100 attack at each level, eventually the 100 attack is worth nothing, right? Players invest in or unlock entry requirements for content they want to engage with. The higher the relic level, the scarcer materials, and less likely players are to invest in those resources, which we've been proving for 4 years with Relic 9. We've heard the community that players don't think Relic 9 is worth investing outside requirements because GLs and the occasional tank. Like I said, that's how I look at it. R9 still loses to R5 just like R8 does. R9 doesn't make battles in early phases of TB meaningfully faster. R9 doesn't make assault battle challenge tiers or proving grounds or other events much easier. It comes up short in both PvE and PvP content, both solo and group content. I'm going to very generally agree with that. Now, R9 in the right situation can cost you some banners in Grand Arena, which it did cost me a couple rounds ago, but I generally agree with that. You could say just make the stats in R9 bigger. This is where I really start getting lost here. And we'll address that possible approach in just a bit, but the short response is that is a series of questions. What does that mean for R10? What does the impact of R10 mean for R11? Well, that means, guys, I see R10 and R11 in our future. Higher relics in the future. R12? How will this be sustainable for multiple future levels of progression? How does an increase in stats in R9 help players below R9? We have to look at the long-term future of relics, not just the levels that players currently own. Well, is this being addressed with Relic Delta? I don't know. Okay. In the end, the problem is far bigger than protect higher relic investment, which is as much as revealed to the test. Yeah, that's what they told us, and we're like, that doesn't make any. I remember I told Beta, I'm like, that doesn't jive. That make. All right, yes, that's part of the problem, but it's not the whole problem. We need to facilitate all players having a systemic and scalable game-wide reason to pursue upward progression. But scalable at what level, I guess, is the question, right? Like, scalable at what level? The options, possible solutions. We've seen some suggestions from the community on other ways to solve the core problem, albeit without knowing what the problem was. Feels like nobody knew what the problem was, or the community didn't know the problem. Now that the problem is revealed, let's take a look at why these other options weren't chosen. Do nothing. That's one option. I think there's a good 50% of you guys that just want them to do nothing. And it's like, that's just not how games work. Sorry. Example, the game stays at R9. Result, players eventually have enough resources to take the entire roster to R9, 15 years down the road. There's no new level of progression, no new challenging content the players can strive to overcome, as players don't have upward progression to pursue in a primarily, there goes that mouse again, vertical progression game. There's no longer reason to engage with the core gameplay loop of play, get rewards, invest, get stronger, play. Rewards don't matter, there's nowhere to invest. I agree with that. I agree with that. The game has to keep advancing forward. Change relic stats on existing relic levels. Seems reasonable to me. Example, R9 is updated to add an additional 50 mastery and 100 speed. 100 speed seems a bit much, but okay. Result, the value that players receive from their prior investment and upcoming investment goals changes. Some characters probably come out winners, but many would certainly be losers. Different characters impacted to differing degrees, which results in a fractured solution rather than a solidified one. The meta still shifts potentially drastically, especially if mastery constituent stats are touched. Mastery constituent stats are the mastery stats for the character. Tank gets health, protection, defense. Attacker gets crit damage, crit chance, offense, whatever. Okay. That's not exactly right, but you know what I'm saying. Relic levels beyond R9 aren't directly supported, and this doesn't address the core problem of scalability. That's hard for me to absorb, and I'm not gonna say it's like if you give all tanks the same stats, some tanks end up doing better than others. Why isn't that going to be true for Relic Delta? I don't know why that's not the same. Okay, introduce R10, add R10 by itself. That was kind of what I was saying. Result, R10 exists with no new content to support it. We'll make the new content. With R9 being difficult to acquire, many wouldn't have any R10 care. Well, that's true. That's true so far, but you can make R9 more available. The top end would invest as much necessary for new requirements, also updating GL teams, and then R10 to be in the exact same state as R9. It plays into and exacerbates the problem rather than solving it. All right, let's keep going. Maybe you guys are absorbing this better than I am. Add the damage, increase, decrease on the top few relic levels. Example, R7 deals 10% more damage and receives 10% less damage from R6 and below, R8 20, R9 30, etc. Result, this is honestly the closest these possible solutions came to solving the problem before Relic Delta was chosen. Unfortunately, this does nothing to help players below R7. It even creates a bit of a wall at R7 or wherever the value is introduced. Additionally, it would need to be removed and shifted up as new relic levels are introduced, since increasing to plus or minus 40, plus or minus 50, plus or minus 60 isn't scalable. Well, it sounds like it's scaling to me. Eventually, a single relic level is unbeatable by any relic level below it, and removing value from players' investment feels terrible. Yes, that's true. Sometimes it has to be done for the greater good of the game's health, but it's never something you relish doing. You avoid it whenever possible. The chosen solution, Relic Delta. Relic Delta, and by the way, Delta is just the difference between two numbers. That's all that it means. Okay, Relic Delta was conceived a year ago. The basis of an inspiration comes from within our own game. 10 years ago, the game launched with a level Delta system whereby attacks would experience modified crit chance, accuracy evasion, damage, and resist chance based on the difference between the attacker's and defender's character levels. So, level 50 character versus level 70 character, they have more crit chance, accuracy evasion, damage, and resist chance. And that's it? They also had more, they didn't get more health, protection, and stuff? Only crit chance and resist chance have any values, so only those two were ever in play. Recognize... Why doesn't accuracy and evasion have a value? Somewhere between 0 and 100, right? Damage has a value, unlimited value. I don't understand why damage doesn't have a... I don't understand. I don't understand that. Recognizing that most vertical progression live service games have some kind of delta system to facilitate conquering old content and not pushing too far ahead on higher level content, we decided to update Relics to use a similar system. I have a basic understanding. I'm not understanding why those only two stats had I don't understand that whole statement. A level delta system is used so broadly because it's incredibly scalable. While players are leveling and working toward max progression, the delta sticks with them and applies equally to their experience regardless of where they're at in the progression curve. If progression levels are increased, the system accounts for that by automatically applying equally as players work toward the new cap without requiring bandwidth from developers to balance and maintain bespoke bonuses. So it leaves more bandwidth or more ability for developers to develop the game, new stuff, because the system is scalable. For all players at all relic levels, it speeds up and or simplifies older content. It protects newer content and investments made to engage with that content. It supports a distinction in power level and PvP. It rewards those who have made the climb. It promises that your investment time and resources will be rewarded. We chose for Relic Delta to only apply to damage because we wanted the stats and relic levels themselves to still matter. So we're going to keep progressing the stats with the relic levels, and we're going to Relic Delta. We're gonna somehow progressively increase damage. Individual relic levels should still be able to express varied stats based on what the meta needs at the time of the relic level is introduced. We've heard that the concern around Relic Delta eliminating strategy, yes. Mods, counters, and theory crafting, maybe we aren't seeing a complete elimination of strategy during either internal testing or the current playtest. I've found some of that. I'm just saying, I'm not even a great amazing tester, but I don't know, okay. We aren't seeing a complete elimination of strategy. So there's got to be some strategy eliminated. We fully intend for strategy to continue to be a central aspect of both PvP and PvE content. We fully intend for that. Yes, Relic Delta eliminates some cases, e.g. Gear 12 Malicos beating R8 Ray, but it also introduces, I didn't know that happened, by the way. It also introduces some strategy around which characters to invest in, and by how much based on your usage of them and their place in the larger meta. Always been true, and we've talked about that, right? Like, which characters do you go to R9 first if R9 matters more? We gotta see what it looks like before we start making that assessment, right? So, I hear that. When we are aware, golly mouse, we are aware that there have been other similar games with what seems like the same concept on the surface, Marvel Strike Force and Overpower, right? But there are two critical differences that make this more favorable for free-to-play and folks who have invested in Galaxy of Heroes. This system is a gradual curve rather than a massive boost at just one level of difference. Curve meaning this. So when we get to gear, okay. The system has a single progression path, relics, which are becoming more accessible in the same release. So there's not going to be like gear 14 and then whatever on that. Well, that's getting a bunch of dev speak at this point. Rather than requiring investment in multiple disparate systems that have differing rates of accessibility. So it's not, you have to relic your character and also get ISO 9 improvements on them and also get another gear level. Then we go to level 90, then we go to level 95, then we go to gear 14. The variations, alternate versions. There are some alternative executions of Relic Data System we've considered. Relic Delta. We've considered some of which we've seen suggested by players similar to above. I wanted to briefly. I'm tired. Just FYI. I'm only 3/4 way through this. Kick in later. Example, Relic Delta doesn't take effect until your R7 or R9 lower relic levels are unaffected. I thought it was only kicking in at Relic 5 anyway. Result, this introduces inconsistency about how the system is applied. Messaging for a system that suddenly turns on after you cross the threshold is difficult. Oh, messaging for that is difficult? You don't say. Messaging is difficult. Okay, hold on. Additionally, how do you say Relic 9 has Relic Delta active and not have that apply to Relic 3 when they're battling each other? I don't think they'll be battling each other very much, if I'm just being honest. I don't think you're gonna... Okay. Delta implies two different values. It requires the context of the other side, at which point the lower relic is inherently involved in the system and affected by it. Why shouldn't lower invested units also benefit from having a higher relic level than units below them? So Ugnaught versus Supreme Leader Kylo Ren. So Ugnaught should have benefits at higher relic levels too. When adding new relic levels, should the threshold move up or stay the same? If it stays the same, eventually all relevant relic levels are affected anyway. Messaging is difficult. I've lost the plot. I'm just gonna be honest. And I get that they're trying to be transparent. I've lost the plot. I'm gonna boil this down to like 3 sentences in a minute. Only increase damage, don't decrease it. Example, the higher relic character deals more damage, lower relic, but lower relic deals just normal damage. This helps address the problem and doesn't protect the higher relic character. Think of a glass cannon build in a RPG. You can add more damage, allowing you to kill things faster, but you still die to that one ground effect that you step in. You're still susceptible to the same things, you just get more efficient in between dying to do the same stuff. It's not holistic enough of an impact. What's wrong with Jinx? Lay off. Use the average relic level. We got tanks and... I think the problem is that it's a team farming game. If you have just absolute glass cannons in that team farming game, then AoE damage effects will just wipe them out and they don't really have an impact in the battle. I think that's what there's. You have to make them like super fast to get 2 turns before anybody else does. That's what I'm reading into it. Use the average relic level of the team or low. I don't like this at all. I don't think you should take the average relic level of the team or lowest level and squeeze them all down to that, or what. I don't like that, and I agree with this. If an R9 SLKR gets weaker because the player begins using R5 General Hux, you're gonna stop using Hux. You'd rather bring in the R9 Ugnaught in that case. So I get that. I get that. There's also a lot of gamification and cheesing that can be done if the average is used. What's wrong with cheesing and gamification? The future, where does this leave us? With these changes, Relic 10 is being added to the game. I don't know when, doesn't say when. It's coming. Though please see above as to why it doesn't solve the core problem. I gotta be honest, I really don't understand why it doesn't solve the core problem. I'm just... I understand the basic idea of we make a scalable system that brings in these damages. We put it all in relics. We don't build it into the relic levels, and then it frees up the developers to make new stuff and fix Grand Arena. Hint, hint, nudge, nudge. Know what I mean? Know what I mean? I don't understand why that isn't built in. I mean, it's all semantics. It just feels like semantics to me, and I'm gonna say I kind of get that it's not, but I don't get it. I don't get it. Okay. It will use a new signal data. We already seen the picture of that on April 1st, right? It will use a new, and I bought into it, it's hook, line, sinker, which will not be farmed with energy, so it doesn't disrupt your current signal data farming. Instead, the new signal data will be available in both the scavenger and other game modes, okay? Finally, there will be a new game mode, new events, and an update to era-related journey guide events, ensuring that all players get to use new characters right away for valuable rewards. Well, that's fun. That's fun. So all players will be able to use new characters. So all players. So even if you are participating in the marquee and you're just going out there and autoing your way through the marquee, and you're getting some rewards, right? But you're only getting the base level rewards if you didn't pay money for it. But what they're saying is they're going to introduce a reward system for everybody to use the new characters and get rewards for it. That'll be interesting. We'll see. That sounds like the update that they're pointing to when all of this sounds like the update that they're pointing to when Meathead said that a few months ago. We want all players to be able to enjoy the latest characters and content being released. All right, that sounds interesting. We hope this context helps our choices around Relic data make a bit more sense. We will monitor the impact of Relic Delta again, I keep saying that, in PvP modes and make adjustments as needed. We're passionate about the game. I believe that. Now, I'm going to tell you guys this. I've met with these devs. I believe 100% that they're passionate about the game and they care about the players. I believe that. Call me a shill. I don't care. I don't care. Tell me they're taking advantage of me with the testing, whatever. It's all symbiosis. It's all symbiosis. It all works together. Players playing the game, content creators making content for it, you guys absorbing the content, content creators being, if this is the first time you've been involved in anything for a long time, it all works together. Everybody gets something out of it. All right, anyway, I believe they're passionate about the game and care about us, and I believe they want to hear the feedback, and they're listening to the feedback as we test this. Until next time, CG Vet Dev Team. Okay. We got to scale the game up. It's been 4 years since we scaled the overall game up with some, stuff in between. That was just, datacrons are here and there, whatever. We've been able to catch everybody up. We've spent 2 years on Lightspeed bundles. Everybody can get caught up with an investment. It takes money, but you can get caught up faster now. New players get caught up. It's easier to get caught up and move forward in the game than it used to be. Now is the time for us to start building a scalable power progression system in the game that takes advantage of everything in the game, so that we can scale vertically. And all the reasons are difficult to message, and I don't really understand why one is harder than the other. Although what is being said that if we scale up the Relic Delta for Relic 10 and 9 and 8 and etc., and we make relic materials more available to everybody, and gear, that everybody can invest into it, and then they can spend more time fixing Grand Arena. That's what I hear. And Territory Wars. That's what I hear. And making new stuff that you need Relic 10 for. Although I don't know why, I would love to see all those old assault battles get a challenge tier 4. That would be fun. That'd be fun. Good content for me and you. I could be out there on the front lines of it. We could have a lot of fun building teams together that do that stuff. And there you go, boys and girls. That's the announcement. Let me know in comments. I'm streaming tomorrow or today. I'll be streaming. I'm going to need your help to digest this. So please help me on stream. Let's have some fun. Talk to you soon. Always remember, Nooch too good.